I'm just reflecting right now. This investor is sharing this through the George Gilder report, something that a futurist that I listen to sometimes, and a number of others. But I really do resonate with what's being shared here, that we have to be paying attention right now, because our financial system, there's no way it's going to not, there's no way the dollar will not collapse. What is being explained here is that $9 trillion, essentially the amount of money printing in the last year in this analysis is equivalent to 22% of the creation that's happened over the entire 250 years of our country. Now I need to like really go and fact check this, but this is like being put out by a billionaire investor. You can look it up on LinkedIn and everything. And it's really deeply concerning. Eric Wade, who's a tech entrepreneur, is just like sharing this thing here, and I don't normally open these emails, but I do feel really like this was an important one. Like, this is something that just can't, it's not sustainable. So people, friends, everyone, the only thing that is going to be worth something are actual real raw assets, your house, your things that can help you actually live, whether that's a car, whether that's like a tiny house on wheels, something that you can live in. But the actual money is not a safe place anymore with the amount of printing and inflation, and there's nothing backing the US currency. We all know this. There's no gold, there's nothing. It's only the trust it's given by people. But when that trust breaks down, and when you have to pay money to borrow, like negative interest rates are something coming, you have to pay to be loaned the money, paid for money that is yours. I mean, it's our own governments, and that comes from us, that comes from taxpayers. And without getting into that, because it confused me for a long time, suffices to say, I hope that all my friends and family and soul family move their assets to cryptocurrencies that make sense. And look, Bitcoin, because it's trusted by so many people, is a great place to like hedge bets and like stay steady with it. However, knowing the actual way that Bitcoin works, the currency itself is not really backed by anything other than it takes a lot of computing power to mine it. That computing power isn't used as a resource to generate value. It's only hard to break blocks, if you know about cryptocurrency mining. So what I think makes much more sense are cryptocurrencies that are backed by real things. Look, if it's going to take computing power to mine it, that computing power should be generating something of value, doing research, processing, machine learning data. This was the project I was working on in Canada for 2 years, is to build a cryptocurrency system that is backed by computing power itself. So instead of gold bars, you have actual GPUs and computing power that can be pointed at different actual real world tasks, like that machine learning algorithms do, that research institutions do, that every industry really uses at this point. So that's something of value if it's pivotable computing power, but that's not what Bitcoin is. So I don't even think Bitcoin is like it's only safe because it's the runaway train that's popular, and that means it's valuable even if it's not backed by real assets. But for someone like me that see the writing on the wall, I'm seeing is like cryptocurrencies with smart contract systems that are actually backed by something in the real world, intellectual property, let's say, or whatever it is. I just think within our system that's going through transition, like I can't wait for the day where we're not based on this like super hardcore capitalistic profit driven systems. But for now we are. And for soul family out there, that's like really, it's good for us to be resourced. It's good for us to be resourced and not like be fooled by what's happening. And I want to just shine light on that and say, like, I'm seeing other futurists that are really looking into the downstream impacts of what's happening now at a macroeconomic level. And I want to share this with you, and I want to invite where you're seeing something different. I know the mainstream media seems to gloss over the gravity of the fact that we're printing this much money, and the gravity that our economy is tanking because people can't work other than the mega wealthy. The systems that are really gonna rock now that we can't, restaurants are closed, businesses are closed, like cloud computing has exploded, Zoom, things like that have exploded, tech has exploded, but a lot of the traditional industries really haven't. And there's just, look around you, your intuition and common sense will see there's no foot traffic in our city. That means a lot of, you know, retail businesses went out of business, or they're just being bailed out by the government, and the government doesn't have anything of value to provide other than money it just printed that people still believe is worth something. But the moment that they realize it isn't, there would be some sort of mass inflation, because suddenly what are you going to do with a bunch of money that doesn't, the cryptocurrency is worth way more than that, that is backed by real world assets. So I think what's happening in the background, and it's being confirmed by like people like this that are really in the center of it, I do think this man and others are trying to do the right thing and just share. Although I see that this message, I had moments where I raised my voice watching it. I'm just like, yo, your perception's really colored by this concept that, the future, yes, capitalism is being upended, right about that. However, I do see us moving to a more social impact and economic sustainability model of living, and I think that that's going to be reflected in the way companies are, like that entire like smart contract credit system is going to be connected to the downstream impacts that you have as a industry. Also, if you're a tech company like Facebook and you depend on your users to extort their data in order to make your money, that's not going to work once blockchain's in place. Like, there will be smart contracts to trace how you are managing and generating revenue from your users' data, and the ethics will be tightly seen by a immutable blockchain. So those businesses are going to have to face massive ethics shifts, because there's no doubt that we're living in an era where it's going to take time, it's going to take years, but the blockchain is going to shift the way that we consider value. And so holding your money in just cash is not wise, in my individual and many others' opinion.
The debts we've accrued cannot possibly be repaid.
Yeah.
Even worse, anyone holding traditional currencies like dollars, euros, or yen, they're losing wealth.
That's what
Even if your bank is not yet charging you to hold your money, the currencies issued by today's governments lose roughly half their purchasing power roughly each decade. Look at this chart that shows how quickly your saved dollars lose value over the years. And if all that weren't bad enough, with the permission of our government, the banks, credit card firms, and other money institutions, they're now getting away with ripping off the public at every turn.
And that's the problem. The lobbies are so strong. Right.
They charge you $3 or more just to get your own money out of an ATM machine, or $50 to send a bank wire.
How is that right?
Credit card companies get away with charging 20% interest on late payments, but if the credit card company allows someone to fraudulently open a new credit card in your name, they call it identity theft, and it's somehow your fault. Credit card companies charge businesses 2 to 3% of every purchase made.
So I think it's really important to pay attention.
Including mine.
I think it's really important to pay attention right now. And I don't like these scare tactics. I don't like this clickbait style of content. But I do have to say there is some real alarming, these are alarming trends that I'm seeing too. And I think, there's just no way mathematically that this can't end in a collapse of the dollar. There's no way that this can. And I just see, like, right now, these large tech companies are basically able to, stack the deck right now. They have information they can see the future. I mean, I know already from my work in the artificial intelligence field, with the quantitative investing has already been going for a long time, which means you basically do really use complex algorithms to watch everything that's publicly viewable on newspapers, on Twitter, on, videos, and track information about what companies are doing and how all of their movements are interlocking, and an algorithm goes through and determines what's likely to happen. And the more data they have, the better they're trained, the more you can actually create a machine to tell you where to invest. And for businesses like Amazon that have listening devices in almost every house, in Google as well, and Facebook that has all this data, like, what society's, where it's going at a high level, and the amount that of power that gives to have insight, more insight than any human here could have that doesn't have access to it. The power is like virtually limitless, and I think they're riding that wave, which is why wealth income inequality is like beyond where it's ever been in history. Like we're the Great Depression was an example, and this is the same tactic those mega wealthy did then, where they like crushed the entire middle class the way it's happening now. Like, this is an old playbook, and buy everything up on the cheap, buy everything up on the bottom. Back in that time, what they did with the Federal Reserve, most people know about it now. It got privately controlled. Right now, are we going to see the same thing with blockchain currencies? So basically, this new class of very wealthy tech elite, aka by some the digerati, which is an interesting, way to make them sound really scary and clandestine, but it's true that these elite have access to so much information about all of society. It's so far reaching, and now AI is at the point where those algorithms can use all that data, harness all that data, and they're 100 steps ahead of everyone here. Like, they can see it in clear detail and move the chips. And what we see at the end of the day, you look at an interest like Google, and they're a business at the end of the day. Is it in their interest to censor certain types of content, or through suggestion engines, things like that, to make the mainstream narrative dodge the places that where if they were held accountability or shined a light on at Google, at Facebook, of course, Google's not going to make it easy to find, or Facebook's not going to make it easy to find information that could be damaging to their core strategy in generating wealth, because that would be breaking their agreement to shareholders to not go, total balls to the wall, like take the market by storm. Like, that's what companies are designed to do. And until I see really clear, open, transparent ethics coming out of these companies, and I'm seeing some of them do it, I want to believe and send energy to that the beings at the top of these companies and the digerati or super elite really are coming to their senses. And actually, that is what I'm feeling on a spiritual level. I want to share some hope on that, and just really hold that prayer that they take responsibility. And also, I see the handcuffs that, having run a startup for 6 years of my life, I remember what it is when shareholders are pushing on you, when your investors are pushing on your ethics. It's a scary position to be in, because so it's not even the fault of these figureheads that run companies, because they are up against the wall. And sometimes it's like you either resign and just some other head will come to take the place of this corporate structure that you're on top of and is doing things at the borderline of ethics, and even holding the firepower of finance to go lobby with the government to keep the ethics considerations off their back in the interest of profit, not in the interest of humanity, not in the interest of doing what's right to the people that actually gave them all that power. Like, there's a lot of abuse happening to the users of all these mega platforms. It's like they don't even matter, and there's a larger agenda playing out, and because they're a monopoly, they can do it. And I know a lot of people have some strong feelings about that. Like, corporations should not be required to have any ethical liability. But at this point, I would argue different. I feel differently,
Will eventually refuse to accept a credit card that charges our company 3% of every sale. Not everyone feels this way, of course, but I believe strongly that today's entire financial system is corrupt, broken, and simply will not last. The good news is a new system of money has emerged. It's still in its infancy, but I think it could ultimately change our world. And believe me, if you miss out on this development, or
Okay, I don't like this
keeping
pitch.
the majority of your wealth in dollars or
But that's
euros
true.
or
That's
any
true.
other
I feel that.
increasingly devalued currency, you may regret it for the rest of your life. Today, many smart and successful people I know are desperately seeking a way out of our current, highly regulated, public, and bankrupt global financial system.
That's the truth.
They're getting rid of dollars and moving their money into other assets, including
see, the wealthy are doing this right now. They know what's going
digital
on.
currencies like Bitcoin. Now, look, I know what you're probably thinking. So many of my friends, family, and colleagues have been extremely skeptical about Bitcoin too. I think mainly because they don't understand how it's actually a software solution to today's fiat money problem. Fiat money, of course, is not backed by gold or silver or anything except the good faith of the government, and nothing whatsoever seems to be able to stop the government from printing more and more dollars every year, making your cash savings worth less and less. Let me show you some things about Bitcoin and computer software that I can guarantee the general public doesn't understand.
I don't like this. Like, let's all get rich if you know, between who knows and doesn't. But
from that level,
the whole thing
soar again to the high levels
needs to be
and have been completely baffled by this huge creation of wealth. It's been compared to the Dutch tulip mania of the 1600s, when an entire nation was swept into a frenzy, and the price for a single tulip bulb soared to 10 times the annual earnings of a skilled laborer. But for me, as someone who spent the early part of my career deep in the world of Wall Street banking and finance at A.G. Edwards and Merrill Lynch, and as a lifelong student of economic history and sound money and computer programming, I knew right away when I first learned about Bitcoin that it would be a game changer.
But what is it backed by?
In fact,
it's not.
I began building my own super specialized, high-powered computers to mine Bitcoin in my own garage starting 8 years ago.
Until I realized the mining wasn't doing anything useful for society.
Could be devised to link rising computer productivity to the cost of producing the secure blocks.
Okay.
You see, when you finally understand it, you realize it's a breakthrough of historic proportions. As one of my colleagues says, it's the equivalent in computer science to Einstein's theory of relativity in physics. It represents a critically important new way.
Now, I might be out of the know, but has Bitcoin transitioned its systems to actually do something, obfuscated tasks for other businesses or governments or whatever as you're mining? That's my question. Because the last time I checked, and it's been a year, honestly, I've been out of this. I've been out of the tech world for a little bit, at least in a formal way. I've been very involved in the invention space over the last year. But at least in the space of Bitcoin, what I understand is that when you mine a Bitcoin, it just presents a very difficult equation for a computer to solve. It's just trying to solve a puzzle for the sake of just churning power, like computing power. So it does make it hard to get Bitcoin. But the work that processor, that GPU is doing is not actually producing something of value. It's just proving that it took a lot of work to get it, which just burns a power bill and wastes a perfectly good graphics card on something that doesn't really need to happen. Now, if instead there was actually, productive use happening by mining a coin, then that would be backed by computing power. And that was the original concept I tried to create back in that time. And I thought it would borrow from a whole network of people with computing nodes. And the cost of computing power and different tiers of computing power, depending on how secure they are, the location relative to the where it was needed, would be measured in like a kind of like, a marketplace system that would be a coin and rise and fall with demand, different types of computing. Anyway, okay, like Bitcoin, the reason I invented that at the time, or ideated that back in 2017, was because I was so upset. I remember where it was. I was walking around Green Lake and someone explained it to me like, no. the mining is not, I was like, oh, but it's solving some equation, of course, encrypted behind, the mining, the effort of the GPU that's mining. And my friend was like, no, like, who's a programmer I respect, who's like, no, Darrick, like, it actually is just, I mean, it's breaking a hard equation, and they get harder over time, and that's what creates the value of Bitcoin currency. And I was like, wait a second, but it's not actually producing anything of value. Not really. So it's bad for the environment, and it could be so much more. So at the end of the day, we talk about fiat currencies that are something like basically the US dollar, which has nothing behind it. It used to, like 100 years ago, and it hasn't since then. Bitcoin doesn't, in my eyes, have anything behind it other than they're hard to mine. So I don't think it's collapse proof. It's not a true asset to me until there's some hard fork or whatever in the actual framework of Bitcoin to support and deliver computing power on the other side to, entities that need to use it. So yeah, I have a huge skepticism of Bitcoin just being another face of fiat. And but there are awesome currencies out there that represent actual gold or actual, I think at this point, someone's built a proper like computing backed currency. There's been many since then. At the time, I couldn't find any, but I don't think the project I was working on got scaled down to a different like business use case. And I'm sure that there have been computing based tokens, like render tokens, a good example. There's other, that the Otoy built, which I really respect. Anyway, there's some really good ones out there. I look at Hedera, and they're like Hedera Hashgraph. Really dear friends in the blockchain space have been, I respect what these guys did. As this, this is I think this one is going to be behind a lot of, it's a really incredible, I mean, just when you look at this generation of Hedera, the fact that it, Ethereum can do a certain number of transactions per second. This one is just like eclipses all of them. And it's fast, the confirmation's fast, it can handle a lot of transactions across a single blockchain. And that's where Bitcoin, I mean, look, 3 transactions, 3+, and I think it's gone up. They're for the newer generations of Bitcoin are at higher transactions per second. For the whole world of Bitcoin, like there's a limited number of transactions because it has to confirm across a whole bunch of nodes all over the place, right? Now, Hedera is rocking 10,000 plus transactions per second. This is brilliant. And the security level, this is asynchronous Byzantine security level, which is like used by the highest levels of banking customers. And I know this because my role at the time, back in 2018 and 2019 at ITEL, really I got to learn a lot more about this and like what banks care about and what really secure medical data providers care about in their security of transactions. So this this ABFT, the asynchronous Byzantine level of security, which means it's a mathematical proof, which ensures like of extraordinarily high level of security. The fact that they were able to achieve that security level across this many transactions at once, my feeling, and I actually respect the ethics of this group too. So I don't actually own this, but I believe if I had the right resources to invest, I'd say Hedera has got it going on, and it's going to probably be the framework that I know even Facebook Libra basically jacked, like they copied pretty much verbatim like the underlying architecture of Hedera. So they're on the right track. They're super solid. There's some really awesome, I think there's gonna be blockchain currencies that are gonna basically create an entire credit and debt system for not just carbon, but the sort of downstream impacts of pollutants in water, things like that, as well as track the consent across data networks, like I mentioned earlier for Facebook, when your data is taken, that you're notified if you want to be, that you get the potential to have a share in all the data, the money generated from your eyes looking at content, which right now is all going to Facebook. It's going to be a Facebook killer, or force Facebook to evolve to step into this era of actually sharing its profit relationship and consent relationship with its users. It must, or else it's just wrong, and the free market will push something that's has an ethical constitution ahead of these players. Google too, they should be rewarding people they should be exposing the type of data they're collecting and giving people ownership of that and a stake in the money generated from that, like the resources. So it's not, in this era where tech companies are just going through the roof, share that money from what you're generating from everybody staring at your content because they're locked at home during a lockdown, which, like, you know? Sorry, I see my energy getting worked up, but it's important to get worked up sometimes when you just know, like, shit's not right and it needs to be, you need to hold a candle to it, you know? I got too many tabs open, so I can't find this tab where that video is playing. Oh, here we go. I don't want to, maybe it's too much to play this whole thing through and record it, but I feel like
for humans and machines to communicate and cooperate.
This guy basically sees the writing on the wall
about Bitcoin along the way will surprise you.
Blockchain is the future. That's where all the assets are going to blow up, and the people not participating.
For one, there's something very important about Bitcoin that even most of the world's experts haven't figured out yet. You see, most people think that Bitcoin is finite, that we'll run out of Bitcoin at a certain date in the future around 2140. But they're wrong. Bitcoin isn't finite at all, at least not in an economically meaningful way. Even the end of Bitcoin mining does not mean the end of Bitcoin.
Let's hear what he has to say.
I'll explain to you why this matters and why it's such a big deal. And this new understanding of Bitcoin also portends a huge move higher in its price.
Okay.
Bitcoin could eventually trade well above $100,000.
That could be true because it's the one people
hedge
trust.
Fund chief Raoul Pal says Bitcoin is going to $1 million in 5 years. Another argument people make is that Bitcoin has no real value, but that's not true at all.
Okay, let's hear.
Because the quality of money matters. Remember, it is a software solution to the problem of governments printing endless amounts of currency out of thin air,
And it's not, there's two pieces to this. Printing money out of thin air, true, because there's no cap on how much the government can print, which we're learning right now is just what they're doing, right? They're just inflating it, and there's no contractual built-in thing within the framework of the government to stop them from doing this, whereas Bitcoin is regulated by design to have a set number of coins. He's right, it's not like finite, it's just that it's it can't just be tweaked based on the decisions of a group of, gray-haired men somewhere that decide it's best for the whole millions of people that this shift in the currency happens. And Bitcoin cannot do that, but it does not solve the problem of being backed by something that is actually tangibly valuable. I want to hear what's this dude's name? We're talking, and I don't know if I align with this whole email. It comes from this guy Gilder, but yeah, I've seen this guy before. He does run a big firm. He does run a financial firm. The Erik Wade, that's what it is. Eric Wade, profile on him. Stansberry Research, that's right. So yeah, Stansberry Research is, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that he's standing up to say something about this. Wait, this guy died? Maybe it's a different person. Yeah, I don't necessarily trust this guy entirely, but the core point he's making
makes every existing dollar
Let's just
you
hear,
hold
I want to hear this
worth
argument.
less
Let's
and
just,
less. Last year, in 2020, we saw both of these trends escalate in a huge way. Software solutions are among the most valuable assets in the world today,
true.
making many people richer and richer, and our government just keeps destroying our currency by printing and borrowing otherworldly sums
That
of money.
is true.
Bitcoin takes advantage of both of these inevitable trends. Yes, Bitcoin is incredibly volatile, and yes, it has inherent risks as well. But to me, the risks of not owning Bitcoin far outweigh the risks of owning it right now and into the future. One thing that you have to keep in mind as
Why is he
you're
clinging to
trying wrap
Bitcoin?
your
There's so
head
many
around all
better
this is
cryptocurrencies.
how well money serves as a unit of exchange and as a
Store of value. Okay, what's the value other than trust in Bitcoin that people currently, because it's hyped?
And be adopted. One thing all the critics get wrong about Bitcoin, for example, is that they don't understand why it's the perfect form of money for our digital, computer-driven world.
I want to hear it.
But I believe Bitcoin will continue to be one of the world's ascending favored currencies for a very, very long time. And this is not just my theory. You see, unlike most journalists and investors, I'm also a student of economic history, and one of the most powerful forces of economics and human behavior proves this fact over thousands of years.
It's still dodging
Greffen's
this.
law
Like,
explains what happens throughout history when there are two or more different types of money of different values in an economy.
yes,
like
relative to the dollar, Bitcoin's worth a lot.
Greffen's law says that
But
inevitably people spend the bad
this is
money
good information.
of lesser value and hoard the good money as savings because it will be worth much more in the future. Take, for example, the U.S. government's decision to stop using real.
Yeah, okay, so I don't see this guy's taking a long time to say, and maybe he'll get there. Maybe he'll get there. I hope you do, Eric Wade. But I know this is kind of funny to just make an entire video right now from this like email that I clicked on, but it's from a reputable ish, you know. It is I've followed some of Eric Wade and definitely George Gilder, and a lot of it's on point, and it's super they're really lame because they have a little bit of an agenda. They're in the like high wealth economic system, so they're thinking in that way. They're not like all they have like this idea of social purpose activism to help others get rich on the wave that's coming, which is I guess a noble thing, but I say face the root issue with the United States itself and regulatory agencies right now, and stop what's happening with the US currency. Like, also, like, because people will, not everyone's going to click on some video and figure this out. Like, right now what's happening is these cryptocurrency assets could just, they're going to start buying up the world. And like, that's why I think right now he's right. There's a shift over to cryptocurrencies that make way more sense. But Bitcoin will have its rise, in my opinion, and then it will have its fall because there's better cryptocurrencies that people will come to figure out when Bitcoin isn't just, right now Bitcoin is a household name. It's popular and valuable because people hear cryptocurrency. And sorry, I just hit this little plug. It made some noise. Oh. Yeah, too many wires here. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna take a deep breath. This stuff really gets me going, and I have work to do. I need to focus, actually, right now. But I guess to complete this thought, yeah. Sorry for this, like, hyped energy. I don't think that's necessary here. I just, like, I don't want my just good people out there to be under-resourced and in a tight spot in a year because, like, I agree with him. I don't want a lot of people to, like, miss what's happening. And I worry that they are. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a huge shift in who has resource and who does not based on, the dumping of the U.S. currency. It's going down every day. like people are landsliding away, and the government knows it. That's why they're printing and buying assets with it right now, because that's like, and because the government is connected to corporations, right? They just bailed out all the bad debt. They basically bailed out all these industries that were going to go down from the lockdown, so that behind closed doors, it's like, hey, you're okay, we get that you're doing this entire switch to like a tech dominant economy, but have the taxpayers basically buy all our no longer valuable assets away from us, like stores that are, I just think they're at a mass scale. The ones that got the most bailed out were these and really helped were these massive corporations, and the people that are tied to the US dollar, which are the taxpayers, not the billionaires. They're barely paying any taxes. They're like, the government they don't need the government. It's all the lower class and middle class that need the government, and the government's gonna be bankrupt because it's destroying its own currency. What's it gonna do? It's just gonna be, it's gonna still have all this debt. Yeah, I am concerned, and I just pray that people that are really in power do the right thing right now. And I, you know what? I just hold space for that. I hold space for that. I don't wish to be in fear, or I know how powerful manifestation is when you feel something, see something, think and expect something bad. It tends to come true. I also don't believe in burying my head in the sand and just avoiding something that's staring me in the face, and maybe in the greatest, highest good of my soul's healing journey and everyone else's, we have to face a, vampire energy that isn't going to stop until it's faced, because it's literally programmed to do so. Because the corporate, the way corporations are, it's like, even if you're a good person, you're put in these situations where you got to do something that's, you feel like you have to do something unethical, and if you don't, they'll get someone who will. That's just, and I see that happening in government. The lobbies are so powerful, they're having an influence there, and they can stack the deck behind the scenes, in front of it. It's legal to do that. It's legal to do that right now, for lobbyists to do what they do, and so the line is so blurred right now. So, yeah, I just don't want to be an ostrich with my head in the sand and call this out and open discussion with all of you, because I don't, I just don't, or I don't even know if dialogue's the right thing. I just want to put this forth, and I hope you are doing your own reflection, and you might come to a very different conclusion than me, and I totally respect that. I just do have a skepticism for this entire way that, not the entire, but many key aspects of what I see unfolding at a mass systems level, at a government level, at a high level corporate level, where they're just going through the roof, and I don't see them doing social good at the speed that they're accumulating wealth. I'm not seeing that accountability, not to the level I'd like to see it. I see steps though. I see Facebook starting to respect our privacy through notices that come through. I'm seeing, I know Microsoft and other companies do have a social good aspect. They do. They do want to do AI for good and for the environment. There's not no steps being taken. There's Amazon Smile, which uses a percentage of everything you buy to go back to the cause of your choice. Those are good things. There's good things happening. It's not devoid of good things. It's just that it's not the proportion that we need to put the push on corporations to step up. And the good news is, through blockchain, here's another thing. If you own shares in a company, you vote for what that company does. You're a shareholder. So if we took all the shareholders that exist in the United States, some of them not in the wealthiest class, some of them just middle class, upper middle class, lower class. There's people that own stocks. I mean, definitely upper class people will hold the majority of those. But for all of you that are ethical, really want the best for the world, and you hold a lot of shares in companies, what you need is a blockchain system that allows you to auto vote with the shares you have to push companies to adopt social impact policies, economic impact policies that get them on a credit and debt system to trace their impacts across humanity and return, are they paying the right wages, offshore or onshore? And are they consenting, like, ethical practices with their users' data and everything like that? Like, there's so many ways to look at this for health companies, right? Are they, make sure they don't have inherently designed systems that cause them to push pharmaceutical products on people that aren't actually healthy for them and things like that. Like, we need to create accountability systems, and it's possible to do that now. And it's possible to trace it all. And it's possible to automate your ability to reach with your dollars, with your choice, with your eyeballs, with whatever you're looking at. I'm just saying all of that needs to move into an economic and a taxonomy that really honors people of all socioeconomic, racial, and orientation backgrounds, honors plants and animals. We need to know the downstream impact. Like, if you're invested, you have shares in ExxonMobil, you have shares in, I don't know what, it's a good stock to invest in. Right now, you taking ethical action because of that vote that you have is very crucial. And so I'm just calling upon our programmer friends to develop a system that makes it possible for people to, in an easy, usable way, cast their vote across many shareholder meetings all the time and get notifications, and you do it properly and hold our leaders accountable. These are some of the things I'm seeing right now, and yeah, that's an invitation.
Silver in our coins back in the 1960s. The U.S. government passed the Coinage Act of 1965, eliminating real silver from the production of dimes and quarters.
I want to see why he thinks Bitcoin is actually valuable.
The bad money,
rather than just popular right now and inflating, because it's what people associate with good money.
People took all of the pre-1965 coins out of circulation and have hoarded them away. That's why you never find one in daily use today.
But see, it was still silver, which was actually valuable.
What chases out good?
Okay.
And it's happening again today. Okay. Around the world, many people are seeking a way out of our highly regulated, public, and potentially bankrupt global financial system. They're getting rid of dollars and moving their currencies and their money into gold.
Okay, gold makes sense.
Cryptocurrencies.
Some sense.
Funny, people today make accusations about how Bitcoin and digital currencies are used mainly for criminal activities. But mark my words, in a few years, they will be saying the exact opposite. In the future, cash will be the only currency for criminals, because Bitcoin is pseudonymous, not anonymous.
Right.
What I mean by that is your name isn't attached to your Bitcoin account, but every Bitcoin transaction is tracked and recorded forever.
That's right.
Record where everyone can see.
This is the beautiful part of blockchain.
FBI can track Bitcoin a lot easier than they can track cash or gold,
correct,
or jewelry or art. The truth is, the dollar, the euro, and all of the other fiat currencies, they're the bad money today.
True.
While Bitcoin and gold are the good money. Savvy individuals are beginning to hoard.
Pause. Why is Bitcoin the good money? It is only a representative of what will be the good money, which is properly built blockchain currencies that represent something that is actually valuable. Friends, what can you do? What can you actually do with a Bitcoin? What's behind a Bitcoin? I know somebody mined it, or I know, other people think it's valuable, it's popular, and the ideas of eyes of many, and it takes a lot of computing power to mine it, and some little sliver of that computing power, it's like 1%. Trust me, I worked in this industry, and unless Bitcoin has had major updates that I don't know about, Bitcoin does not actually mean anything. It's a number, and yes, there's a certain number of them that can't be. I love all the systems that trace it, all these things. Yes, they're good. Blockchain is great, Bitcoin just rode the wave of blockchain, though, in my opinion, and isn't the real winners of blockchain are the currencies that if I want to trade in my one Bitcoin and I get to actually I get like, what is a Bitcoin, 50 grand? Do I get to do 50 grand worth of cloud computing with a Bitcoin if I want to? That's something valuable. That's something you can do something with. A gold-backed currency, if I want a piece of gold for this coin that represents a gram of gold, can I actually click a button and get the gold sent to my house? If so, yes, that is valuable. If this thing represents, a certain amount of power that is stored that I can, if it's like a power-based blockchain currency and I can actually get power to power something in my house, that's valuable. That's a valuable cryptocurrency. I'd say yes, that makes sense. Tell me what you can actually do with a Bitcoin. And I think there's going to be a shakeout here. That's my true feeling on this. Anyway, so I get that Bitcoin is the pop culture idea of the good money versus the bad money. I agree. Cash, all these things, bad money. It's not backed by anything. It was always a sham. Anyone who's done their history in economics, it's like when they stopped backing the US dollar and when it was privately owned and they just decided with the Fed could just up and down the interest rate at will, yes, that's bad money, but they got everyone to agree to use it because we have a very, our society is very conformist and we have a mainstream media that tells us money is worth a lot and we associate cash with value. It's visually. I don't think that's holding up anymore. I think that is crashing, but Bitcoin is going to be the thing that people just move their money to initially, but then I think it's going to dip and you're going to see a rise in the cryptocurrencies that are legit. There's legit ones that actually represent something with a properly designed smart contract that actually tangibly represents something. So I still don't see this brother telling us like it is, and I really want him to. I'm gonna give this a few more minutes. This is already at 47 minutes. Anyone that's watched this far, I bless you, respect you, and I just feel if you're at this point, you're another person just observing all this and kind of just a macroeconomics and just a tech nerd looking at this, but also with the gravity of what it means in this time. Meanwhile, on a spiritual level, trusting that all of this I am grateful to Bitcoin. I am grateful to these organizations. I don't want to just throw shade on it. I'm really glad that we've moved to this system of blockchain. It's going to be better. It's more transparent. Transparency leads to a higher integrity. Things don't happen in the background. I think privacy is important, but it does solve for privacy. Because of zero knowledge proofs, you can have two people, person A, person B, exchange money and not need to, there's a level of both anonymity and confirmation of identity that's possible with blockchain, which is really cool, which is what made cash so valuable. Because it's I don't have to trust or know you for you to trust and receive this thing. And there's Bitcoin's amazing and any blockchain currency is amazing because it has to check against a massively immutable ledger that's distributed across many computing nodes with high security level to know that it can really it's not hackable easily. It's really secure. You can transfer wealth and things that way. But
in many ways, Bitcoin is the new gold, particularly for the younger generation who grew up in our world dominated by computers and cloud software solutions. It's the new way for savvy investors to get their money out of collapsing fiat currency.
How is Bitcoin not a fiat currency? Come on, Eric.
Something that will likely hold its value in years to come. Think of it this way. For many centuries, humans acting in their own best interest realized immediately that gold had special properties of which I'm sure you know. But the really special property of gold was that it was both scarce and inexhaustible. Gold isn't consumed. Thus, the stock of gold grows and continues to grow at roughly the same scale as human ingenuity. There's a strong correlation between total supply of gold and total installed horsepower.
That's interesting.
Here's what I mean by that.
I never knew that.
As humans became able to dominate the physical world through motive technology, engines of various types, mining gold grew progressively easier, and thus more and more gold was produced.
Why is gold valuable? It still doesn't answer that. It's shiny, it's nice, and it's used in microchips and other sorts of like computing environments. So it still has retained a lot of its value, I think, because of that, right? It's actually intrinsically usable. But I don't think gold is dipping in it. Like it used to be harder to get shiny things, and like now we have like qubit zirconium, we have like other precious metal. There's things that are more usable. Like there's certain precious metal that are used in, you know, microprocessors that are going to continue to rise in value much faster than gold. There's other resources that are like crops and food futures that are much more valuable than gold, and a blockchain can represent something like crop futures. That's another thing. Or these are the things that I think will hold value. So if I had massive amounts of money, I'd be dropping all my cash currency and I'd be moving to smart contracts that owned the future of industries that are likely to be scarce. And guess what? If I have an algorithm that tells me what those are, because I'm harvesting through artificial intelligence and massive computing power, let's say I'm Amazon, I can run all the simulations I want to algorithmically understand where value is going to be in the future. They're even sitting behind the cloud systems like Google and all. They have information about what people believe is valuable and not, because they can literally aggregate that data. Anyone that's seen Social Dilemma, whatever, like this is that kind of the same sort of like knowledge that these companies have about people, they have about companies, other companies that sit on their cloud systems. I believe that. And so this gives rise to this like all-seeing Eye of Sauron status, like ability to know where the value is going to be. And so, yeah, I think gold is like, it's always going to be valuable, but nothing compared to like if there were a food shortage and like and that's known based on all the simulated models. You can have an algorithm invest into the blockchains that represent, or the marketplaces that exist that securely hold through contract interest in an actually valuable commodity or whatever. I hate the commodification of the world. Like, all right, I just wish it would shift into this reverence of the world, the stewardship of the planet. I want to see currency and resources of the wealthy devoted to rebuilding our world, to reseeding our forests, to, you know, replacing plastics with better fiber materials and things that can be built regeneratively, and like subsidize these industries, like do the right thing. Yeah.
However, as more people looked for gold and the more gold was mined, the harder and harder it became to find. So while the total stockpile of gold always grew, the value of each additional ounce remained relatively constant in real terms. And think about how important that is in the global computer network of today. Just like gold kept up with our mechanical abilities in the industrial age to improve horsepower efficiency, Bitcoin will continue to appreciate at the same pace as Moore's Law, which basically says that the capability of our computers doubles every 2 years. No, it won't happen in a straight line, but over time, it will follow that trend for the internet to reach its full potential, for it to unleash the incredible power of global cooperation on a much, much larger scale. There needs to be a truly stable exchange of value mechanism whose purchasing power won't be massively impacted by the resulting increase to human productivity. How do you do that? How do you build a measuring stick that won't be impacted by artificial intelligence?
Good point.
Certainly not with the dollar or any other currency that can be printed out of thin air. Even gold is very likely to become cheaper in real terms in the years to come.
Agree.
Because scientists will eventually figure out how to break the supply barrier.
And it's just not as useful.
It could be by mining asteroids or seawater or some other radical innovation we haven't thought of today. So what can possibly keep pace with the incredible gains in productivity predicted and realized by Moore's Law? The answer is Bitcoin.
Oh, that's not the answer. Bitcoin. Ugh. Sorry, I know I'm a broken record right now. Bitcoin, yes, it keeps up with the pace of Moore's law because it takes more and more to mine the coins. It's, for those who don't know, to mine Bitcoin, you run a computer like the big one I have down here all night long. It'll be trying to break what's called a block. We call it a blockchain, right? And a block represents a couple things. One is like a ledger of transactions that occurred, and so it, by the computer being involved over the internet, it's able to actually be part of the distributed system, the computing that is required to trace the transactions, right? And most of this is important. This is really important. As time goes on, it gets harder and harder to break one of these blocks. They call it a block, right? So that block comes with a tough code to break for a computer. And it's working and working and working. It used to be really quick, right? It was like most of the energy in mining was actually devoted to the transactions and the computing of the transactions, which wasn't a lot back in the day. But now they just keep bulking and bulking up the amount of computing it takes to do this, right? And again, correct me if my understanding is incorrect. Anyone out there that sees this and is just like, yo, let me break it down for you, brother. Like, you're actually missing some changes that happen with Bitcoin. And I want to make space for that if I've really misunderstood. But from what I understand, like, this amount of work being done, the answer is not Bitcoin. The answer is something where if we're going to churn computers and GPUs as hard as we are to run Bitcoin right now, and by the way, you could power, back in 2019, 3 New York cities around the clock, I believe. It was like between 2 and 3. And now it's certainly that, based on the expansion of these things, with the amount of mining that's happening for Bitcoin around the clock. These computers are like servers and servers. Just look, imagine a sea of computers just mining Bitcoin. And they're just working hard because all they're doing, they're working hard against like a fake puzzle that they're being made to work hard against. It's like 2 sets of linebackers, just, it's just like, why? And yes, it's hard to do. Yes, it follows Moore's law, but it does not produce anything. And I just don't see how that is the answer. Like, it's bad for the environment too. It's not admirable. So I want to see why Bitcoin's actually valuable, and I hope we get there. I'm going to play a couple more minutes and I'm going to end this. I don't want to go more than an hour. This has like been an interesting exploration tonight, and I have work to do, but
that's exactly what it was designed to do. And just as gold was the perfect proof of work for the age of ever-increasing locomotive power.
The difference is it's a proof of work. It takes work to extract gold out of the ground, but at least you have the gold at the end, which I wish we weren't pulling anything out of the ground, like, and just for the sake of something shiny destroying an entire environment, like, nah. But at least you have gold, okay? Like, from a purely economic perspective, you worked really hard, you extracted gold from the ground, it's a valuable thing. You work really hard, you mine a block. What do you have? What do you have other than someone else, because they're hyped that Bitcoin's blowing up and thinks this thing is worth 50,000 and there's a marketplace that's going to drive up the price based on consumer demand. Like, I get that it's in high demand, so it's worth a lot. But wait, hold on. If it wasn't worth a lot, what would you do with the computing power used to generate, like, what would it actually be worth? You cannot trade it in for anything. And that's the same thing that a fiat currency is. It's just the new fiat currency. And to me, it's designed to collapse once it's the like wag the dog, look over here, while all the people who really know what's up are literally just like funneling their resources into current blockchain that actually represents, because they're legal documents backing them. Smart contracts is the term that blockchain companies use. Their smart contract that this coin represents this square foot of land in this place. Like, they own that now. Versus the person that's holding onto a Bitcoin, like, wait, I own something, it's supposed to be worth a lot. No, you don't. I see that rug being the next rug that's pulled out, unless there's some insight I'm missing.
Industrial age, Bitcoin is the perfect currency and the best stable proof of work and money for the computer age. The important thing for you to know right now, of course, is this. Based on my analysis, I believe that in the near future, Bitcoin will not be worth the $20,000 to $40,000 range it's traded in recently. It could ultimately be worth at least 10 times that amount. Of course, there's no guarantee this will occur, but again, I'm not the only one saying this. The billionaire venture capitalist Tim Draper says, Bitcoin is to the dollar as the internet is to paper. Draper says a single Bitcoin will be worth $250,000 as soon as 2023.
Why?
I think that from here on out, Bitcoin will continue to be one of the world's most favored currencies, and it will stay that way for a very long time.
Why?
Another thing few people understand about Bitcoin is that unlike fiat currencies, each Bitcoin is divisible to 8 decimal places.
You can divide it into small pieces.
0.000000001, and each 0.000000001 unit is called a Satoshi. It's worth about 1/100th of a penny in today's dollars. In other words, even as Bitcoin rises in value, it's still easy and possible for anyone to shift as little or as much money as they want into this digital currency, because you don't have to buy one full Bitcoin. You can buy just a tiny fraction.
Still dodging this. Why is it worth anything? I see this as, honestly, well, okay. First of all, I want to respect this person who's obviously like really knows what they're doing in finance. But I also just want to be real with you. I wonder if these people in finance are knowingly or unknowingly like leading people into Bitcoin as a place to like shift value to the digital space, but without them actually acquiring valuable assets. Like, to me, that seems like a like, what's the term? Like, it's not a red herring or whatever. It's like a bait. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the right place to lead people to if you really want to help them. I feel like if I had money to invest, if I really did, or if I had a system that could shift my home ownership right now, I want a blockchain currency that represents a smart contract to my house. This is an asset that I would love to work with and, be in a situation where I could hold the value in like a smart contract that I could then use against other types of actual asset-based tokens. And I know there's probably like really cool things out there. There's things where it could be representing all sorts of intangible but valuable assets. I mean, there's like smart contracts now that represent like you can buy 100th of the Mona Lisa if you wanted to, or 1,000,000th of it, and own a share in that and have a smart contract to represent your ownership. Like, those are things that's different than if whatever you know and you believe in that actually has value, that you can see the value in with your own sensibility, and there's a blockchain to represent it and you believe in it, go invest in that. Don't just run to Bitcoin. That's my truest advice. And I have had a lot of really, like, some of you have just dear friends have written me about my input on blockchain and other Bitcoin, or sorry, other blockchain currencies. And so I've been kind of I haven't shared a video in a minute on this type of stuff, but I do really feel strongly about this is the time for Jedis, for avatars, for social impact, like angels on earth that are in human bodies and all so often under-resourced. I really want you all to be resourced. This is like just a true like sharing from what I know, and I'm totally not an expert in everything. There's absolutely do your own research every time, but I just think from a logical level, I feel that this would be the time to shift your resources. I can say the underpinnings of all of these systems. I think Hedera is a really awesome like baseline like framework for that. A lot and the transaction costs are so low that it's going to be, but I think it's a really worthwhile investment, and it's at like $1 billion in market cap right now, but I think that's going to go way higher. I think that Also, there's going to be major moves made by Facebook and some of the big ones to launch their own currencies. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of currencies, and it's going to be about which one has enough traction to be trusted. Look, if Facebook launched a currency tomorrow, I think Bitcoin would dip hard and people would move over to that. Even if Facebook launched a similar like a fiat currency, basically, that wasn't backed by anything. However, I think if Facebook does, it'll probably be backed by things like, the value of your attention and like, the actual in-app or in Facebook purchasing and sending money. I do think there's going to be a lot of big players launching currency solutions because it's the biggest industry there ever was, is banking. For those of you who are awakened souls, you know that the central banking has always run the world. And this is the big chance for these tech elite to finally basically overturn the old, sort of like the things we typically hear about, the Rothschilds, Rockefeller, Medici, like all those families that have run massive banking cartels basically around the world. And, there's that rabbit hole. But is this going to be a new one? The Nueva Riche, right? Is this the big move that they're playing? And they might win. I think you can't go wrong with those might really be great investments and kind of be volatile. But I do think Bitcoin, I don't know. I don't see it going up to 200, 300 grand. I think there's going to be the better plan at this point. If you've won well on Bitcoin, if it were me, I don't think it's going to go past 70. I don't know, but I could be wrong. I think at some point though, it's going to dip hard when people have adopted cryptocurrency, get more sophisticated in their understanding of it at a mass level. They're going to shift to currencies that actually mean something, are actually worth something real. So that's the main thing I want to say. All right, I love everybody. This has been a super intellectual space here, and to be honest with you, I've been in a deep processing space, a deep heart space and spirit space the last, month, and I've been, documenting things, but I haven't shared much of it. So it's kind of funny to put a snapshot out in this zone when really it's been a more spiritually introspective and deep healing space. But I just saw this and I thought, yeah, just want to do right by humanity and share when there's something to share, when I know so many people are teetering on the edge of exhaustion right now, and just the savings they have, I would not want to see people. Anyway, this is not certified financial advice or anything like that. I want to make that caveat. Obviously, I'm not a financial planner. I'm just using my common sense. All right. I love you all. Bless you. And yeah, just grow something beautiful with everything you have in your soul. That's my hope for everyone right now. And we're all doing our best. All right. See you soon.